Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys or will be the keys to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success. All right, well, welcome, Mikey, to Insights into Success. Really pleased to have you here today. Really interested to hear your story. Now, I don't want to spoil it by telling everyone what exactly that you do. I want that to come out later on because I think people might be a little bit surprised. And yeah, I'd like to invite you to kick it off by taking us way back and telling us your backstory. Tell us about where you grew up and give us a little bit of insight into your growing up, what that was like. So maybe we can understand a little bit about if that has influenced you at all in terms of what you're now doing. So take it away.
Paul, you got it. You know, it's interesting. My background has nothing to do with what I've done today and where I've kind of reached success today. So it's an interesting story. So other people that are listening that are coming up one way and you know, it could be a complete 180 in their life, but sometimes that just happens because it's life. I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, and I lived there till I was 21. You know, the area I grew up in was a really nice area. It's super nice now. I've moved away from there. It's been over 20 years. But I grew up living with my sister, my mother, and my grandmother. I didn't really have a father figure for most of my life. He was kind of out of the picture early. We didn't really have any entrepreneurs in my family other than pretty much myself, starting at a very young age, doing the lemonade stand, you know, raking leaves in the fall, shoveling snow in the winter, mowing lawns in the summer. And that going into, you know, different odd jobs to getting my first job, which I actually back in I guess it was the late 80s, was building computers, which was really random because there were barely computers back then. But that segued into working for a sports collectible store because I was big into sports collectibles, the baseball cards, football cards, comics, you know, doing all that. So I learned some from working for the two guys that owned the sports collectible stores. But I would say most of my journey in working for others, I've learned how not to run a business, I think, more than how to run a business, because, you know, I've always been that kind of person of like, you know, hey, if this was my business and wherever I worked, always treated it like my business, how would I do it different? So I definitely didn't have, you know, a huge financial backing by any means growing up. I think I was 14 and my mom said, hey, you need to basically start paying for, you know, I can give you $50 towards shoes, but I know you want those Nikes that are 100. So you're going to have to pay the difference. And I think that did help me because I do appreciate kind of the growth over the decades and being able to now afford nicer things and just a greater appreciation than when, you know, maybe something that was just given to me growing up. So it's been a journey, but growing up broke-ish, we weren't like, you couldn't eat food and stuff like that. Like by no means, there was definitely way more people worse off than us. But growing up in an area where people turned, you know, 16 and they show up in their new BMW at high school was kind of crazy. You know, I worked like crazy for $5 an hour or whatever it was back then. I bought my first 1979 Camaro with dents and had to put oil in it every day and, you know, just to make it to school. So yeah, it was a little different, but it was interesting to see where other people were in life.
So Mikey, do you think looking back, the fact that you had to work to get what you did, do you think that that was a disadvantage or in fact, it may be an advantage?
I think it can go both ways. You know, I didn't even go to college really. So I took a couple classes and dropped out. I think if I had more financial backing, going to college would have been something a little bit easier because I was working full time in high school. So I basically would get off school a lot of times and I'd go work till, you know, kind of late at night sometimes. Yeah. The one thing about me I can say is I can just I'm a workhorse. That's how I grew up. So I have
Yeah.
no problem working. So if I lost everything today, I know what it takes to get it all back. I've done it a couple times because I've lost everything a few times through business.
Right.
I think it's helped me in that way of being very resilient, because through my failures of entrepreneurship, I think if things were more just kind of handed to me, I don't think I would have been as resilient, got back up, say, okay, let's try this again. Okay. Fail.
Yeah.
Let's try this again. So I think for that part, it's been kind of helpful.
Yeah. And in terms of you, when you started out with your lemonade stands, from what you're telling me, it was really, sounds to be more than anything else a necessity. It's kind of like you didn't have a lot of money. So if you wanted to get some money to maybe get some of those things that you wanted, then you really needed to do something. So it really pushed you into trying some different sort of entrepreneurial projects.
Yeah, I mean, we'd go to the beach in the summer, and my mom said, "Hey, we're going to the beach, and if you want to do stuff at the beach other than play in the sand, which is free, or hop in the water, if you want to go play putt-putt or go get ice cream and all that, you're probably gonna find a way to make some money." So I would always find
Yeah.
that way, and yeah, I appreciate it now. It's fun.
Yeah. And I mean, because one of the things that strikes me is that potentially, as much as it could be a benefit to be born into a wealthy family, it could actually be a negative as well. I mean, sure, if you're born into a wealthy family, there's potentially the capital to maybe use in a particular sort of project that you want. But by the same token, there's also the potential for you to take it all for granted, not to value it, not to appreciate it, and always feel like you've got a bit of a backstop. You've always got, mum and dad with the money to lean on if it all turns to custard. Whereas if you come from nothing, you've got no one else to lean on. It's all on you. And if you fail, then no one's going to pick up the pieces other than you. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and we can talk about money, but at the end of the day, like, is money happiness, right? So I'm sure I know a lot of successful people that are really rich that are just so unhappy. I'm sure you know the same, and your listeners know these same type of people. So money is not always the key to happiness, which is in health, which is more important than anything at the end of the day. I think when you kind of start from nothing and start your business from nothing, it's definitely much more. I think you have a greater sense of appreciation for it relative to if you just have unlimited funding. I mean, I've never raised money for any of our businesses over the years. And, so I don't even still to this day know what I'd do if I just had someone's like, oh, here's all this money to go do something. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful as well. Like, it could be a hindrance on some. So it's, obviously you have people like the Kardashians that just, it seems like they're printing money at this point because of what they built over decades of being on the media and whatnot. But most people don't have that advantage. And, I know plenty of people that didn't really have much and have created some really amazing success stories.
And so when you were a teenager, did you have any thoughts about what you wanted your career to be? Or were you just very much hand to mouth thinking in terms of, I need a job to make my way at the moment? Can you recall back what your thoughts were back then?
I was kind of lost as far as what I wanted to do when I get old, when I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm going to get older. I went to a school that was a very successful, like, families went to this school. So a lot of people, like, they kind of had it all piped out where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to this college, I'm going to go do this and, get in the family business or something else. And I didn't really have any of that. I did know from a young age that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it took me a while to really figure out what my first business was going to be after kind of saying, okay, let's start honing in on what this is going to be. So a lot of times I meet people that say, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm so old and, I haven't started my business yet. And I'm like, well, how old are you? And they're like, oh, I'm 25. I was like, 25? I said, most people don't start anything till their 30s, or they've done enough stuff and got experience to be successful. So I was like, don't pump the brakes. Everyone's journey is going to be different. And it's just understanding that and then just embracing it.
And so, Mikey, when you were working, you touched on before about having lots of examples what not to do. When you were working for other people, were you consciously thinking about the business and how it was run and analyzing it? or was it just something that kind of it just unfolded and then retrospectively you thought, oh, okay, yeah, they shouldn't have done that? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Sure. I think I was somebody that wherever I worked, I always treated that business that I worked at like I was the owner.
Right.
Whether I was the guy that was cleaning the bathrooms or something else, I always treated it like I was the owner. And I think that's helped me with a lot of stuff that I've done in life. And I've always been very analytical of trying to kind of break down, okay, this costs this, but they're selling it for this. But then, hey, what are these other costs? Oh, I'm getting paid. So you got to take that out of the equation, because some things look all amazing with, hey, this is some expensive thing and you're making all this money on it one time. But, what are the expenses in the business, this, that, the other. So I was pretty analytical about what was going on within the companies I was working for. And I try to use that to the best of my ability within my businesses, but it took a few failures before I really got good at having a much higher level of understanding of how everything in the big picture kind of works together.
Yeah, so talk to us about failures. I want to hear about those and what your view is on those. So what sort of failures have you had? Can you give us a bit of an
failures
insight?
are always so fun. Yes, indeed. I love it. So my first business, it was called Curry Simple. It was the first packaged Thai curry sauce ever to be sold in the US. And it was a pretty revolutionary product. I was probably a little early on it. I think if I started it maybe 5 years later, it probably would have been much more successful or had a longer kind of better longevity with it, because I was selling food on the internet in 2006. Not many people were selling food on the internet in 2006. I was making cooking videos and putting it on YouTube in 2006. Most people didn't even know what YouTube was in 2006.
So, Mikey, I have to interrupt you there. So I have to know. So you're making cooking videos, and putting them on the internet. But were you really a cook? Was that kind of your thing, or was just purely opportunistic? You felt there's a business opportunity. Tell me, what are your cooking skills like? How did this come about?
I definitely wasn't a cook. That's why I needed the sauce. That was the whole point, because my slogan was, we make Thai food easy. So basically the hard part with most of Thai food is creating these sauces. The issue was most people in Asia that were making the sauces were not making restaurant quality sauces, which is all that American people know. There's a lot of foods in America that there's a cheap version and then a really tasty version you usually find in a restaurant. So American people would generally only eat at Thai restaurants. So when they would try to cook Thai food at home with these cheap ingredients, it would never come out like a Thai restaurant. Well, I said, well, this doesn't make sense. And I knew this because I was working at a Thai restaurant at the time, not as a cook, but as a bartender. So I said, well, why don't we just make something that's super high quality that tastes just like a restaurant, even though it's going to be a little bit more expensive. And generally within a coconut curry sauce, your main ingredient is going to be coconut milk and not water, because if it's water, it's just going to be tasting watered down and not really just like a restaurant. So that was people, when they saw me and thought that I was like this great cook, even though I was on like TV cooking now. I'm on Fox and CBS and all these TV stations. And here's up next, Mikey Moran cooking Thai curry. And it was like, I don't even, I knew all I had to do was cook some meat and vegetables, pour in the sauce, and then people would taste it and be like, there's no way this is possible. I'm like, yeah, we did it. Yeah.
So Mikey, how did you get on these TV shows? How did you manage to do that?
Oh, back then I was also really broke, and I had the best PR agent myself. I was relentless reaching out to people. I mean, I just was, I think I let go of the fear of reaching out to TV stations. My first press was actually, I was on the front of the food section of the Washington Post, which is one of the largest, especially back in 2006, one of the largest newspapers in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I was on the front of the food section of that. That got me into the local news here in Atlanta. So I was in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Entrepreneur Magazine, the TV spots. I was on Donnie Deutsch, The Big Idea, like a quick segment on there, which was pretty cool. That's kind of like the pre-Shark Tank kind of show that was on CNBC. And it was kind of like a snowball effect where I was in the Washington Post. So I'd reach out to AJC and I'd say, hey, I was just in the Washington Post with my revolutionary new sauce. Let me send you some. But actually, some of it wasn't always that easy. So, like, to give you a quick example, the AJC, I sent them. I've reached out to them, sent them some sauce. Didn't hear anything back. I sent them more sauce. A month later, I sent them more sauce because I'm like, look, I'm in Atlanta. This is a big deal, like, and a big idea. People love it here. They need to write about it. And basically, finally, one of the writers reached out to me and he's like, Mikey, we have enough sauce. He's like, why do you keep sending me sauce? And I said, well, look, this is what it comes down to. You guys can either do an article on me, or I'm just going to keep sending you guys sauce every month until you do. And they're like, we give up. We're going to write a big article on you. And they did. And it was like the front of the food section of the AJC, this big, huge article, which, you know, got me into another paper, It was crazy. Like the press. And that helped me a lot because I really spent all my money to get this going. And then I had no money. So it's not like today where you have Facebook and Instagram ads and all these easy ways to honestly get your brand and business out there. It was hitting the pavement a little bit more back then. So, you know, getting into the press was how I got a lot of my sales.
You did well to get into the Washington Post like that. Did you have to sort of hound them a few times for that to happen, or you just struck it lucky?
You know, like we said earlier before starting hitting record button, you know, timing is a lot in life. So I actually reached out to the Washington Post because I was like, hey, I got this new product. I'm from the DC area. Let me reach out to the Washington Post. I grew up reading it. So it's like an iconic paper for me. And I hit it right in time where an amazing writer, her name is Michael Weissman. She was doing an article on local food entrepreneurs. So they got this package. She reached out to me and I said, look, let me be honest with you. I'm from there. I lived there most of my life, but now I live in Atlanta. She's like, you know what? This is so good. And the story is so good because mine was much more unique. My products are coming from Thailand. It's all imported. Like the whole story was just people like, how did this even happen? I was like, I don't even know sometimes. You know? And then she's like, I definitely want you part of this article. And it was a pretty amazing experience to be part of a paper. And that was the first press I ever got, to be in this newspaper that I grew up reading. My family grew up reading. You know, it was a big deal. It's not like today people are like, oh, a newspaper, like, what is that? You know, 15 years ago, it was a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. So what happened there with that business?
You know, like a lot of businesses, we got hit hard in the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. I didn't know what was happening as much until it was a little too late, especially. The thing that really killed me with the business, even after getting in, you know, we were selling online, but we were getting in grocery stores like Whole Foods and Kroger, and I was doing all these food expos and shows and having great success. Where I got squeezed was when I buy a container of this product, and I had a contract manufacturer do it. So they just make food brands. They don't even have a brand themselves. They just, you know, co-packing. Basically, when I first started really in the development in 2005, the US dollar was worth $1 was worth 40 Thai baht. By the end of 2009, the US dollar was worth 28 Thai baht.
Wow.
So if you're even just decent with math, you can do the numbers on there and say, oh my God. Now we know the food industry is a high volume, low margin business. Yeah. So when you can completely lose your margins, it really doesn't matter how much you're selling, because you know, I got squeezed. I got squeezed out and I went down with the ship. I didn't realize this thing was kind of going down and I was losing everything. So I basically went down there with the ship trying to save this. You know, the U.S. didn't come out of the financial crisis fast enough. And I mean, I basically lost everything. Bank account negative, credit score was completely wiped out. I mean, just everything gone.
And did you officially go bankrupt? Did you get to that point?
Nope. So I was lucky that I had very low, at least I had low expenses. So I had purchased my house years prior. So my house payment was very low. I had by this time I had already paid off my car, which I ended up driving for another 7-8 years after all this. So that saved me coming out of all this. So I was lucky to have very low expenses. I think one time I was in trouble with my mortgage and I reached out to my grandmother. She saved me on that. And then, I basically was like, well, geez, I haven't had a job in a while. I guess I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I knew how to do food service and restaurants and bartending. So a friend owned a
Yeah.
very popular nightclub in Atlanta, a place where I used to party and, be a baller. And then, 2 years later, I'm behind the bar serving people that I used to party with.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah.
But I had a mortgage to pay.
That would have been very grounding.
Yeah. So that's a very humbling experience. I can tell you that. Very humbling experience, but it saved me. And I did that for a year before getting into, I was trying to start all these other businesses. Nothing really worked out, mostly web stuff. That's got me into real estate. So a friend of mine had this real estate company here in Atlanta, and I basically started working for him and taking over a lot of responsibilities there, all while trying to start other businesses. We had music in the cloud before Apple and Google. That was actually starting to get pretty popular. My business partner for that business just kind of disappeared. He was kind of like a Zuckerberg level developer. I mean, the guy's a genius, but so I spent 6 months of my life working on this business with him. We're starting to get some traction. We got in Rolling Stone online and a bunch of all these other blogs and other kind of news sites. And then he just says, well, I don't feel like developing it anymore. I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, we just had a call with Birdman, who's like one of the richest people in hip hop, like interested in this. Like, it's getting big. I was on, there's a popular podcast called This Week in Startups with Jason Calacanis. Huge. This has been around for a long time and still going. And I was they had a Shark Tank edition, and I was in that. He invited me out to the launch conference. So I'm like, I'm on this big conference stage with all these tech titans and all this. And people are like, wow, I can't believe they actually have this thing. But, that's a life lesson of pick your partnerships, right?
Yeah.
So you can having the right or wrong partner can make or break your whole entire business with you having no control.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, would you sort of describe yourself as a bit of an ideas guy? Are you the sort that's kind of always got ideas popping into your head, or you've tried a lot of different things? How have they all come about?
Yeah, definitely heavy on the ideas. But what makes a great entrepreneur, which took me a while to figure out, is it's the focus, right? So that's the problem with most entrepreneurs. They can't focus on one thing or stick with one thing that kind of to go all the way through. So definitely coming up with ideas is not a problem. It's still not a problem today. I actually get invited into other projects all the time, and I pretty much continuously say no all day. If it's not around what we do in business today or related to that, there's no way I touch it. There's only one Elon Musk. There's only one, that has Boring Company and SpaceX. And look, I'm not that. But if it's in my segment of business, which is kind of beauty and technology now, then it might spark some interest.
Right. So looking back at that phase we just talked about, how do you see it now? When you reflect upon it, obviously there have been a bit of pain and psychological damage, I guess, from going through that. But how do you actually see it now?
I look back at it. There was a time where it was so bad, and it was just I didn't know how to handle it because it was my first huge failure. I mean, there was a time I think I didn't sleep for 3 days straight because I was so stressed out, and I pretty much have lived I don't want to say a stress-free life, but I don't really. I'm a very positive person, so it really took me out of my element. Looking back at it now, one of my sayings, actually me and one of my other friends that has a pretty successful business, we started at the same time now. And when I say, his name is Kendall, I say, Kendall, I said, man, I've been so broke before and I'm never going back. So my business partner for the current business, he's just kind of like a silent partner, which works out great because I'm very particular about how I run this company. He's very much like, hey, let's just go and do all this crazy stuff and finance everything, blah, blah, blah. And I can tell that at this point, I'm much more conservative because I'm much more conservative in a way. I don't want to lose everything again and have to start over, just because we're in a good place now. And I do want to continue to grow quickly. And we, last year, even during COVID, we grew about 40%. This
Wow,
year,
that's
we
good
grew
going.
about 40%. And once you're in the 8-figure range, growing at 40% without a lot of funding just to fluff up your numbers is pretty challenging. So you have to be strategic in that. But looking back at the failures and stuff, it was just a part of growth. I mean, there's no way I'd be here today if I didn't mess up so many things in the past. That's really how I
Yeah.
learned how to do all the stuff I do today.
Yeah. So would you agree then you learn more than when you have challenges, when you fail, as opposed to if everything's going well? Like what does it mean to you if everything's going really well?
It's scary. I think both sides can be scary. You definitely learn a lot through failure, but you can only fail for so long, right? At
Yeah.
some
Good
point,
point.
something's got to click where you got to start winning, right? And I
Yeah.
feel like the last probably 4 or 5 years, we've been consistently winning. We definitely have had some projects within our infrastructure that we've built that is a complete loss. Like I have one technology product. I mean, we lost at least $250,000 on this project, and it's not around today. So there's
Yeah.
definitely those types of things. But you continue to learn from those as well. I think the key is once you get to a certain space or a level in your business and you're comfortable in life, because you got to have that balance where life is also starts. I mean, you can only work morning, day, and night for so long, to be honest. I did it for
Yeah.
many years straight. But at some point you're just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because you're also getting older.
Yeah.
So it becomes, there's challenges that just come from all over the place that you don't really think about. So it's interesting. But that's the journey of entrepreneurship in life and business.
So you've kind of touched on it, but we haven't really covered it. What I want to know now, I want you to announce to everyone, is what exactly the business is that you're in. And I want you to take us back and tell us how it came about, because it's not what people would expect, certainly not what I would expect. And I know that's, we all can be very guilty of generalizing, and it's very, very easy in this circumstance to generalize and go, what the heck is Mikey doing this?
Yeah.
But anyway, tell us what it is and tell us how the heck you came into doing it.
Right. So I am we have two parts of our business. What most people know us for is that we are a supplier of hair extensions, wigs, lashes, now getting into cosmetics. And then we also have a technology side. So we have an influencer marketing platform. We have a couple apps built with Shopify. We do a lot of web development as far as building websites for clients and such. We also have physical showrooms. We have 2 in Atlanta, 2 more are about to open, one in Greenville, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, Michigan. I've added a couple different partners with some of these other showrooms, very strategic partnerships for those. And if you looked at me, you'd probably be like, there's no way this guy is into hair extensions. And you're probably going to ask, Paul's going to ask guys, so Mikey, do you know how to do hair? Were you a hairstylist? No, I was not. I've never done hair before. I have no idea how to do hair. Well, I have, in theory, I do. I have a very high level understanding of how it all works, but I've never actually done it. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So you got to tell us how it came about. Were you just kind of randomly walking down the street one day and thought, oh, I know, I'll get into hair extensions? How did this come about? How did your train of thought lead you to think about doing this?
So, interesting enough, I was out to lunch at one of our favorite lunch spots where me and my business partner still visit today. This place called Tacos and Tequila here in Atlanta. We're out to lunch. He's complaining to me about how his girlfriend would spend $700 at the salon. And here I am, I go to like the hair cuttery or something like that and spend $15. And I'm like, geez, I thought it was only like 10 just a few years ago. And here women are spending like $6,000-$7,000. And I was just like, we're just trying to say, what the heck's going on? So his girlfriend was explaining about, wigs and hair extensions and how much the things cost. And I said, this just sounds like, I don't know, there's either a lot of opportunity or I think we could do this a better way. Started doing research. There was not a lot of companies online like there are today. And we got started. And, it was one of those things where I was still working for my business partner in the real estate firm. And the first year we had our first employee. So that was kind of cool. I think at the end of the year, we had our second employee. And then the next year, 2015, we had our third employee. 2016, I came on full time as technically our fourth employee. But when I say I came on full time, I was also working, I'd get up at 5 a.m. I'd work all morning. I'd head into the office, work all day. I'd come home and work all night. And in between, work with the team on special projects or other kind of stuff. So it was like the hours were pretty ridiculous. But coming on in 2016, after 2.5 years of working in this business morning, day, and night, I was finally able to pay myself my first $1. So that was pretty exciting.
Wow. So when you refer to your business partner with this business, is he the same person that you went and worked for in real estate? Is that the same person or right?
Yes, same person.
Right. Okay. So when you started out with the business, how were you selling it? Was it just through a website or how were you doing it?
Yeah, we just started online. We actually had a different concept than what we do today. We did a pivot in 2016, which worked out to be very good. In 2014, 15, we were doing more like affiliate marketing type of web sales, which worked out okay, but not great. And then we kind of did a pivot of more of wholesale, drop shipping, helping people build their own brands. I mean, when I was younger, one of my dreams was to be building. I thought I was going to be a web designer. I think back when I was like 20, and I was going to be on the beach in Hawaii with a laptop designing websites, kind of like the same thing you see on social media today, but I was 20 plus years early there. So, we started this drop shipping business that started working out well. But so I came up with the idea on like a Friday after work. I basically worked all night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And when the team came in on Monday, I was like, guys, guess what? We have this new brand. It's called Dropship Bundles. And we now do dropshipping for hair companies. And they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, I already built the whole thing. I built the whole thing over a weekend, which was awesome. And so we started telling all these people, they were all excited they could have their own brand and do all this drop shipping. But the issue became they couldn't set up their websites to sell the hair. So then I was like, wait a second, maybe we need to start selling websites that sell our products for our clients. So that's what we did. And, we've built thousands of websites. We're also web hosts, I guess. I mean, we host over 1,000 websites. We use a service called Flywheel. So we're a partner with them for like agency stuff. And now we work a lot with Shopify. So we built a ton of sites on Shopify. And we just built the business off of needs for our clients. So they needed logo. Their logos were horrible. So we started a logo design service, to packaging, to branding, to, almost everything. I created a one-stop shop for the beauty industry, basically.
So take me back a step, because I kind of want to understand why you've gone down that route or route, as you guys would say. So you've got your hair extensions. Why did you go down the track that you have, as opposed to just selling directly to the market, just having a website, putting out Google ads, Facebook ads, and selling to America as just an online website? Why did you not do that? And then after answering that, can you explain to me a little bit more about what it is, the formula that you're using, how that actually works?
So we actually do sell to the world.
Right.
We sell multiple ways. So we have a bunch of websites. We have brands that people don't even know it's us, that I run tests through and all sorts of other kind of crazy things.
Right.
We do behind the scenes a lot. We do have that. Like, so our showrooms, clients can walk in. So you can just be somebody off the street and walk in and purchase products. But generally in our industry, people like to buy from who they know and who they trust, or for whatever reason. So we have partnerships with celebrities where we're the back end of their brand. People have no idea it's us. We actually have a joke inside our company. It says all roads lead to private label, because that's the name of the company. Private label extensions are just now private label. So because people are buying from all these other people, and a lot of times it's just all us. Not everybody knows this. And it's not something we kind of, our clients probably not going to hear this on here, or well, I'm posted on my stuff, but they know my inside, the business people know, and that's why they deal with us though, because we're very upfront about that. And we do have a pretty large client base. So we're a very stable company, which is very important. I mean, you have to figure if you're drop shipping with a company and they're your supplier, what happens if the supplier is not a stable company that's growing and it just disappears in a day? Your whole supply chain is gone.
Yeah.
So that's really important. A lot of people don't put the weight into that. So like if you're drop shipping with a company, you really need to understand who you're working with, because if they disappear in a day, I mean, what are you going to do if you start getting orders? You don't have the supply unless you start inventorying stuff and kind of changing your business model.
Yeah. So one of the critical, one of the critical things that you've done is you've understood your market and identified that as much as you can sell direct, that a lot of people want to buy locally off people they trust. So as much as you've got your website and they can go that way, you saw there was an opportunity to have a relationship with people that they already trust and sell via them and enable them to build their business at the same time and develop their own brand. So super important, isn't it? How many people don't really understand their target market and identify what they need to do to deliver the maximum returns?
Yeah, it's, I have this Facebook group that has been kind of a lifeline for the business. I've posted in it about every day for the last 7 years from when I first started this group. I have about 38,000 members, and it's called Start a Hair Extension Business Group. So I get tons of feedback within this group about all sorts of things, new products, new services. Hey, what about this? COVID is still obviously kind of crazy in America, but people want to go to conferences again, because right before COVID, we started working on this conference called the Beauty Biz Shows. So yeah, we do conferences, and people are like, wait, how do you do conferences? Like, I don't know. Other people do conferences. Like, I'm going to create my own conference. I created it, actually did it in the middle of COVID. It worked out pretty well because we limited the people. And we're going to do it again. We're going to start like conferences back up because, we'll have a bunch of vendors and of other products, but we'll be the only hair product there. And I don't know. We just listen to our client. Everything we do is so client focused. Like when you come into our showrooms, we really spend a lot of time and money on our showrooms. When you walk into a private label showroom, it's gorgeous. It's going to be gorgeous. You're going to get great customer service. You're going to get a knowledgeable staff member to help you and answer your questions. Like that kind of stuff it's the most important to me and to the company. And I reiterate it to them all the time about, guys, remember, the people that are walking through the door are really, they're everything for us. So we have to take the best care of them as we can and get feedback from them and always continue to try to be a little bit better every day.
Right. So you are constantly listening to the market and looking to refine on an ongoing basis so that you continue to deliver what they expect.
Yeah, I have one of the best tools probably for our whole entire industry, having access to this group and being the person of the group. We have other stuff. So we have a podcast that we do. So we can, we're trying to always create content that we can put in this group and to help people. We do a lot of giveaways. Within the group, I give away a laptop pretty much almost every week for the last 2 years. There's a lot of people in the group that need help. They are trying to run their business from their cell phones. So we like to give back to our community. So I give away laptops, and that's been something that's helped like literally hundreds of people at this point. So it's not just about growing the business and trying to be like this all-star brand, but it's also about listening to your customers and taking care of the community that supports you or that potentially will be supporting you and building them up.
So when you made that change, you went from affiliate marketing to now what you're doing. Can you give me a sense of how dramatic the change was in terms of your revenue and that? To what extent, like in the first year, did that positively impact on your revenue?
We continue to grow every year for pretty much every year, except for, 2019 was our first kind of flatline year, but we've either kind of doubled, tripled sales for the first few years. That pivot was big because it really unlocked a lot of other opportunities that we saw in the industry and a lot of products and service that we could create for our client base. And it just kind of, it got It went fast. I mean, we in 2018. So if you're familiar with Inc. magazine, there's the Inc. 500 and Inc. 5000 every year. I mean, in 2018, we ranked 278 fastest growing companies in America. The total investment for this business was $28,000 ever. We've never put any more money in.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And now we own, we bought the property where we're at now. We bought some other properties. We have tons of real estate. We have a lot of real estate paid off. It's all about people. I see a lot of problems with people start to earn this revenue, and the owners start taking all this money out and think it's this pond that just keeps filling with water.
Yeah.
Right? You can take a little bit out of the pond, but if you kind of like bleed the pond goes dry. So I've been very careful of not taking too much money out of the company, reinvesting the best we can, building assets within the company to make it something that we have a very, very strong foundation for our company and our business. And that's important for our clients as well.
So that to me is one of the many, but it's an important point to successfully running a business is understanding the management of cash flow, which is what you've talked about. How many times you hear people that have businesses that are profitable, but they actually go bankrupt or they're in trouble. They can't pay their taxes or other commitments, despite the fact they're profitable, because they don't understand the cash flow element and the importance of managing that and not getting ahead of yourself. And as you say, draining that pond, and then you've got nothing there to cover for day-to-day expenses.
It's something, as your business will grow, it's something that you have to learn, and you have to learn it quickly. Definitely hire a good CPA. If as you start growing, probably over 7 figures, have monthly bookkeeping, very important. Start forming good relationships with your suppliers. So, before COVID, I was spending a lot of time overseas, a lot of time in China, and forming those relationships with our partners that we now work with, that we create like these amazing projects and products and stuff that's kind of revolutionary in the market at this point. But, I have handshake deals for tons of credit. If I can tell my guy, hey, can you send me, I have this big thing coming up, send me like $500,000 worth of hair and, I'll pay you back. And he's like, okay. Those are the relationships too, that you have to start building with your creditors. We have great relationships with the credit card companies like American Express, the bankers that you start working with, start forming relationships maybe with a smaller bank because these bigger banks are only really looking for these public companies and other kind of stuff as much as they say they want to work with a small business. Generally, you can get better deals with small banks. We do use big banks for like deposits and other stuff because they're all over the place, right? So you have to be strategic with that. As you grow, you start looking at how you're going to continue to grow. And some people are just happy at certain levels. I haven't reached that level. I don't feel like I'm even close because I'm having too much fun. And it's always more fun when things are going right. Like when things are good, like, you're having fun, next year, who knows, but having cash in the bank is it's so important. Like, it's unbelievable the difference it can make in your business and just how you personally as the owner can feel that you have this safety net. Because if you're kind of pushing it, and this is something I did in my first business that was not smart, is I kept just taking that money and I would spend it on try to do extra marketing, this, and I had like no safety net, right? And that's just one easy way to get wiped out. So now at this point, every year, I continue to grow. Like what I thought was a good amount to have in the bank in cash just a couple years ago relative to now, it is a big, big difference.
Right. And just, again, I'm just trying to get a sense of this. How many people do you employ now? Because I'm trying to understand, we're talking back, it was about 2015 of that year, had kind of only about 3 or 4 people. Give me a bit of a picture of how it's grown since then.
Yeah, so we have, during COVID, we definitely trimmed down the staff a little bit, have built it back up. We're at about 31 people, along with contractors that I work with, some developers for technology, other people that help us with some other stuff through video editing and some other things that aren't included in that 31, but like within the company, actual employees, I think it's about 31 today.
So you're still running it lean, which is great. So you're not overburdened with having too many staff.
Staffing is the toughest part of most businesses, I believe.
Yeah.
Right now in the US, we have a very difficult staffing problem, which has been a challenge. Luckily, most of our staff that has been with us, they've been with us for a long time. I mean, employee number 1 is still with us today. Employee number 2 still works with us kind of on consulting and side projects. Employee number 3 is still with us today. I'm employee number 4. We have a lot of other people that have been with us with 2, 3, 4 years within that group of 30 people. So we have a pretty tight-knit group because they know that the company takes care of them. As the company grows, they get extra bonuses and kind of rewards and fun Christmas party, like we throw the best Christmas party and stuff like that. So, we're very employee focused as well, that, if we're going to rely on our employees to take care of our clients, we also have to take care of our employees.
Yeah. So looking back, what do you think have been the keys to your success? What have been the things that you think have made the difference and enabled you to get to where you have with this project?
I would say being consistent. I would have to say since 2014, we're probably one of the most consistent brands in our space. Consistency is key in every aspect of that. Really understanding the client is crucial. Taking care of your staff is crucial. And the staff part can be tough because you get a lot of people from different backgrounds and work experiences and everything else. And just trying to find a happy medium for that and discussions about that. Pretty good at marketing. I've always been really good at marketing, and that's helped a lot because I haven't had to pay like a lot of people expensive, like crazy agencies, and we've done a lot of stuff in-house. So that's been really helpful. Keeping a lean staff as of recently, the last few years, has been really helpful as well. If everyone's working hard, you feel pretty good. It's what happens is when you have somebody that's kind of just a slacker in a group of hard workers, it just pisses everybody off. And it's like, you have this cancer within the company. So being very cautious of that. The right strategic partnerships. So I partnered for 2 of our stores with one of the first hairstylists that we met, who was a national educator for Paul Mitchell, which is obviously Paul Mitchell is one of the biggest brands ever for hair. So he's been amazing. He actually quit working for Paul Mitchell as an educator, came to work with full-time now at corporate. I partnered with, for our Detroit location, Angela Yee. She is one of the hosts of The Breakfast Club, which is one of the largest nationally syndicated, radio programs in the United States, especially for our demographic customers, probably the biggest. She has been incredible to work with from like a media perspective. She's not running day to day or anything like that. I mean, she mostly lives in Brooklyn and is recording in New York. So the strategic partnerships at this point, we have another partner we're bringing in for one of our Atlanta locations that we're filming with now. That's going to be on national television, documenting the whole thing. So, I mean, those kind of things, you can't, like the marketing value behind that. Like, we're going to give up a portion of this location, but the marketing value behind it it's exponential, and bringing someone else part of the team that understands the brand, because a lot of people get lost in their own kind of they can't get out of their own damn way. Let me put it that way. Like, you have to remember the brand always comes first, because the brand feeds everyone. The brand pays everyone. The brand is the company. It just has to come first. So like, it would be cool to have like some crazy car or something like that. But how's that going to help the brand? It's not. So get something respectable that you can drive clients around and stuff. But like, just be careful. So to continue to grow, we're going to continue just to keep our core values, continue to be consistent, continue to have strategic partnerships, continue to be client focused, continue to always kind of be on the edge with technology. Like, we do a lot of stuff with Shopify. Shopify is obviously the leader with e-commerce. Becoming better retail experts, logistic experts is something. The logistic side is something I'm working on heavy right now. I mean, like our environment in the US for 1-2 hour delivery that's what the big boys are doing. And I'm trying to get up there with them as soon as possible. So I'm working on a lot of logistical stuff. It's never ending. It's never I can go on for hours. We don't have enough time. Like, I can just wheel off. It's hundreds of things at this point that make everything tick.
So a couple of things there, Mikey. One is your work ethic. From what you've told me, it sounds like you've got a pretty impressive work ethic. So that must have been a key to your success too. Has it not?
It definitely helped. Yeah, there's no limit to really what I will do to reach success. Like I'm much more careful this year as far as, even the last couple of years, as far as like, okay, I don't want to work myself to death. My biggest concern is I don't want to be 65, really rich, some fat, bald white guy. Like that's not cool to me. Right. So like now that I just turned 45 a couple months ago. And so now I'm trying to do a lot of more experienced things where it ties in work. So like, me and my girlfriend, we went to Madrid for 10 days. So like in the mornings I'll work for a while. I'll get the team set up. We're working in different hours, work with our partners over in Asia for supply and all this. And I'm still working from my phone, but it's still like, I'm going to do it from Madrid. And I'm going to use credit card reward points, and I'm not even going to pay for the flight. I'm not going to pay for this sick hotel I'm staying in because I've kind of worked that strategy. So it's also becoming smarter about what I do plays a big role in being able to do all this stuff.
Yeah. And with it, what do you think are the keys for other people to succeed, taking into account your experience? What do you think are some of the key things that people need to be aware of or think of in order to help them in their journey to success?
That's actually a great question. And I think in our current time of life, it's never been so easy to acquire the information. The key is, though, where are you acquiring the information? I see these gurus on Instagram that are like trying to sell you all these business courses and other stuff. They've never even had a business. They might have a huge Instagram following or something and people buy into it. I mean, listen to podcasts like this, right? This podcast is Insights into Success. You're getting successful people on here that are telling you what you need to know for free. There's unlimited free information out there today, especially podcasts. Like I know, I even wrote a book, which we talked about, and I know you have your podcast series about books, but over the last 5-6 years, like I barely read anymore relative to podcasts because you're getting the pretty much real-time information about what the successful people in your industry and other industries that you can learn from in real time. I mean, I would just listen to it, find some of these great podcasts about marketing, about business strategies, stories of entrepreneurs for inspiration. Not all of us need inspiration, but like for me, I'm pretty self-motivated. There's not going to be someone that I listen to that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to work harder today. But I can appreciate finding someone that's like me and like-minded, and maybe they have a strategy of not working so much that's interests me, right? So I think that the information is out there. The barrier to entry for e-commerce and everything else, it's never been easier. But you also have to remember that's also a lot more competition that's coming your way.
Yeah. And
right?
do you think that there are certain qualities that a person needs to possess in order to give them a greater chance of success as an entrepreneur? And if so, what do you think those sort of qualities would be?
Ooh, that's tough because I've met so many entrepreneurs that have such different backgrounds and different qualities. I would say find out what your strengths are, whatever that may be, and focus on really turning the dial of where that strength is, right? So like my strength is technology and marketing and product development, right? So that's what I focus on. That's why I strategically partnered in somebody from the hair side for us, right? So like if people are complaining about this happened to the hair or this doesn't work, blah, 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 I say, okay, I understand. Let's get the expert here, who's my business partner, to be able to discuss this at a much higher level, right? So I think it's when you're first starting out, you probably can't just partner with all these people or hire all these people. So figure out what your strong suits are, maximize them to the absolute best you can, and then start putting people in the places that you're going to not be so great at, and then hire an accountant, and that'll really help. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mikey. For those that are interested, we're going to carry on and we're going to do another podcast, which is going to be Read to Succeed. But for insights into success, thank you so much. It's been super cool, really interesting. It's undeniable the energy and determination that you exhibit. So it's of no surprise that you have met with the success that you have. But it's also great to hear how, you've really done it on your own. You've done it your way. You haven't had a leg up. And that's inspirational for us all, because it's very easy for us to think of excuses why we can't do things. And one of the common ones is, I wasn't born into the right family or had the money behind me or etc. But you're a great example of where you've not let any of that hold you back and you've gone on to success. So well done for that. Really inspirational. And I still find it really fascinating that you've got into that industry, but super cool that you've not let that put you off and you've gone ahead and you've been successful with it. So
Thank
well
you so
done.
much. Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.